Technology usually gets faster. Phones, computers, the internet, they all speed up, but airplanes didn't. When Concorde was grounded in 2003, commercial aviation quietly slowed down. But that is about to change. The Lockheed Martin X-59 is not designed to fly faster than the Concorde. It's designed to fix the mistake the Concorde made. The X-59 is a cutting-edge futuristic aircraft, but look under the skin. It's actually hiding a secret. And this secret could change the way the world travels. Aerospace development is insanely expensive. A fighter jet program like the F-35 Lightning II costs over $1.7 trillion in total, and it takes 20 years to develop. NASA didn't have that kind of budget or time. The X-59 program had to be done for roughly $248 million. To hit that budget, the team at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, the legendary division that built the SR-71 Blackbird and the U-2 spy plane, decided to repurpose the parts from retired military jets. They didn't reinvent the wheel, they just stole it. Take the landing gear, for example. Designing a new landing gear system requires years of stress testing and certification. Instead, Lockheed engineers walked over to the F-16 Fighting Falcon production line and took the landing gear from there. It was proven, rugged, and available. The cockpit canopy is taken from a T-38 Talon trainer jet. The control stick is from an F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. Even the propulsion system is a hand-me-down. The X-59 is powered by a single General Electric F414 GE100 turbofan, a variant of the engine used in the FA-18 Super Hornet, the backbone of the U.S. Navy. But while the parts are recycled, the shape of the aircraft changes everything. The plane is 99 feet long, but the nose accounts for 38 feet of that length, more than a third of the entire aircraft. The massive needle-like nose is designed to slice through the air and minimize the sonic boom. More on that later. To keep the nose perfectly aerodynamic, they couldn't put a window in it. Any windshield would break the smooth skin, add drag, and disrupt airflow. So they buried the pilot inside. In a fighter jet, the pilot sits high in a bubble canopy for 360-degree visibility. In a commercial airliner, the cockpit is at the very front. The X-59, the pilot sits way back in the fuselage, far from the nose and completely enclosed. Looking straight ahead, all they see is the back of the instrument panel and the long, solid nose cone. There is no forward-facing glass at all. And that raises a big question. How do you land a 22,000-pound experimental jet moving at 292 miles per hour if you can't see the runway? This is NASA, remember? The solution is the XVS, or the External Vision System. This is the ultimate evolution of flying by instrument. The pilot looks at a 4K monitor stretching across the dashboard, but it's not just a simple camera feed. Cameras on the nose and the belly capture the world outside, and a supercomputer instantly stitches the footage into a flawless window-like view. It looks like a window, but it is far more than that. Because the image is digital, the computer can overlay critical flight data directly onto the landscape. Altitude, speed, heading, even virtual colored boxes outlining the runway appear right on the screen. The pilot doesn't have to look down at instruments, the data floats right in front of them, right where they need it. This adds a whole new psychological challenge for the pilot. They are trusting their life to a video feed. If the display goes dark or freezes, the pilot has only seconds to switch to side window cues or abort the landing. The fact that NASA even flies a manned supersonic jet with zero forward visibility is proof of just how reliable modern flight technology has become. Why build a plane with no windows and a 38-foot nose in the first place? Currently, supersonic flight is illegal over land. It isn't banned for speed, it's banned for the shockwaves it creates. To understand why, don't think of it as empty airspace. Walk through a room and the air flows easily around you. The molecules have time to move aside. A jet, moving faster than sound, behaves very differently. It starts to catch up to the air in front of it, compressing it before it can get out of the way. As a plane approaches Mach 1, the speed of sound, roughly 767 miles per hour, the air can't get out of the way fast enough. It piles up along the nose and the wings, forming a high-pressure shockwave. When the jet breaks through, two shockwaves form, one at the nose and one at the tail. Most jets are short and compact, so the shockwaves travel to the ground and merge. By the time they arrive, they hit as a single powerful pulse of energy, what scientists call an N wave. Pressure spikes, drops below normal, and then spikes back again, creating a shape like an N. But to the human ear, it strikes in two sharp bursts, one immediately after the other. And this isn't just noise, it is a high-energy shockwave. The Concorde's boom could flex skyscraper glass, knock plates off of kitchen shelves, and set off car alarms across entire neighborhoods. It wasn't just a flight, it was a physical assault on everything below. We know exactly how destructive it was because before supersonic flight was banned over the land, the US government actually tested it on its own citizens. In 1964, the Federal Aviation Administration asked a simple question: could Americans get used to sonic booms? Their guess was that if supersonic travel was the future, people would simply adapt just as they had to the noise of trains or busy highways. To prove this, they launched Operation Bongo 2. They chose Oklahoma City as their test subject. For 6 months, the Air Force flew F-104 starfighter jets over the city at supersonic speeds 8 times a day every day at exact times. The goal was to simulate a future where supersonic airliners constantly crisscrossed the country. The result was chaos. The booms weren't just annoying, they rattled schools, they woke up babies, and cracked plaster in thousands of homes. The FAA was buried under more than 15,000 noise complaints, and it wasn't just complaints. Over 4,600 damage claims were filed for shattered windows and structural damage. Farmers reported that their chickens were terrified and stopped laying eggs. Construction workers said the sudden bangs were dangerous on job sites. The mental toll on the population was clear: anxiety, sleepless nights, and a constant tension waiting for the next boom. The experiment proved one thing: the N-wave simply does not work over civilization. That failure led directly to the 1973 rule that banned supersonic flight over US soil, and that ban is ultimately what eliminated Concorde's business model. The Concorde was capable of cruising at Mach 2.04 the moment it crossed the coastline. Over Europe and the US, it had to fly subsonic, and that killed the economics. Supersonic engines are built to fly fast. Flying them slowly, they burn up massive amounts of fuel just to keep up with normal speeds. To make it work, airlines charged outrageous fares, up to $12,000 for a round trip. The market for people willing to pay that just to save 3 hours was tiny. For the last 50 years, aerospace engineers have been trapped by this rule. You can build a faster engine, but you can't outrun physics. Until the X-59. The project began with a simple question: can you change the shape of a plane so that the shockwaves never join up? The NASA engineers used supercomputers to simulate the movement of billions of air molecules. They tested thousands of shapes looking for one that would prevent the N-wave from forming. On a normal plane, the wings and the cockpit canopy and the tail all create their own shockwaves that bunch up. On the X-59, the airframe is shaped to manage those waves. It sends some of them up into the stratosphere and others down toward the ground at carefully planned angles. The shockwaves are stretched along the length of the plane and angled away from each other so they never merge. Instead of a sharp spike, the waves stay spread out. By the time they hit the ground, they have flattened into a gentle rolling wave. On a graph, a normal sonic boom looks like a jagged lightning bolt. This new wave, well, it's more like a smooth hill, and to the human ear, the difference is huge. To make the X-59 silent, engineers had to rethink everything about the engine. The F-18 engine is mounted on the top of the plane, a crucial move for noise reduction. In most jets, the engine intake screams, the turbine blades slicing through the air to create a high-frequency roar. On the X-59, mounting the engine on top lets the fuselage block that sound from reaching the ground. But a top-mounted engine comes with a catch. The air over the wings is rough and turbulent, and jets don't really like rough air. It can cause a compressor stall where the engine essentially chokes and dies. So engineers added a system of vanes and ducts to smooth the airflow, letting the F-18 engine run safely in a position it wasn't designed for. And the challenges don't stop at aerodynamics. Flying at Mach 1.4 creates friction. The X-59 cruises at 55,000 feet, where the ambient air temperature is roughly -70 degrees Fahrenheit. But the skin on the plane heats up. Air molecules smashing into the nose and the wing edges push the surface past 70 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature difference makes the metal expand. On a normal plane, that's no problem. On the X-59, it is critical. The aircraft's precise shape is the only thing keeping the sonic boom under control. This could doom the entire project. Even a tiny warp in the nose could turn the thump back into a full-on sonic boom. Engineers had to make the X-59 structure expand in flight without losing its shape. They used advanced composites and aluminum alloys strong enough to handle the temperature differences. They even turned the fuel system into a cooling system. Jet fuel is pumped through the heat exchangers in the wings, pulling heat from the skin before it reaches the engine. The fuel acts like a coolant, keeping the aircraft from warping, and then it's burned for propulsion. The X-59 isn't just a plane, it is the answer to a 50-year problem. The project is officially called the Quest Mission, Quiet Supersonic Technology. The X-59 is already flying over the California high desert, running its initial flight tests. But the real mission? It's about to take this plane out of the desert and into history. NASA's community testing will do something unprecedented. They'll intentionally fly a supersonic jet over regular American towns. A handful of communities will be chosen across the U.S., each with different geographies and weather. NASA needs to see how the boom behaves in Florida's humidity, Arizona's dry heat, and the Midwest's cold, dense air. And that is where the public comes in. Residents in the flight path will sign up to be a part of the study. They won't need sensors, they are the sensors. NASA's even built a smartphone app for it. The X-59 will fly at over Mach 1.4. On the ground, people will go about their day, walking their dog, working in an office, or sleeping. Right after the pass, the app will ask if they heard a noise, and if so, to rate it. Human experience is the gold standard. Machines can measure sound, but only people can say whether it's distracting, startling, or tolerable. NASA's goal is simple: prove that the thump is gentle enough to live with. If the data comes back clean, NASA will take it to the FAA and the International Civil Aviation Organization. Their argument will be that the speed limit is outdated. Replace it with a noise limit. The industry is watching closely. If the rules change, the market could explode. The leading contender? Boom Supersonic. They're building the Overture, a commercial airliner designed to fly at Mach 1.7 and have already secured pre-orders from United, American, and Japan Airlines. Their Greensboro, North Carolina factory is gearing up to build these jets. Currently, Boom's business model is held back. Without the X-59's regulatory breakthrough, the Overture can fly only supersonic over the ocean. It can fly from New York to London in 3.5 hours, but it has to slow down to subsonic speeds to fly from Seattle to Miami or Tokyo to Paris. If the X-59 succeeds, Boom's map opens up. The overland routes become viable. A flight from Los Angeles to New York drops from 5 hours to 2.5. The barrier that grounded supersonic flight over land disappears. There is one huge obstacle standing in the way. Speed comes at a price. In 2026, that price is carbon. Supersonic engines burn far more fuel per passenger than even the most efficient planes. In a world chasing net zero, a fleet of gas-guzzling jets isn't just expensive, it's a PR disaster. And that's why the future of supersonic flight is tied to sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. It's a biofuel made from cooking oil, agricultural waste, or even carbon pulled from the air. It works just like regular jet fuel, but can cut life cycle carbon emissions by up to 80%. The X-59 engine is already compatible with SAF. Boom Supersonic designed the Overture to run on 100% SAF from day one. The argument is simple: yes, these jets burn more fuel, but the fuel is clean. But there's another threat lurking high above. The X-59 and future airliners cruise at 60,000 feet, well above normal air traffic. Up here, the air is thinner and more fragile. Emissions of nitrogen oxides and water vapor at this altitude can damage the ozone layer. There have been warnings that a full fleet of supersonic jets could make aviation's impact on the ozone worse. Engineers are working on lean burn engines to cut nitrogen oxides, but it's still a major challenge. The X-59 isn't just testing noise, it's testing the atmosphere itself. Ground sensors will work alongside the sensors in the sky, tracking exactly what the exhaust does to the upper layers of the air. NASA focuses on business. The Pentagon has a very different agenda. Stealth technology, like that on the F-22 or F-35, is about invisibility to radar. But visual and auditory stealth are also factors. A jet that can fly at supersonic speeds without creating a boom is a tactical game-changer. Currently, if a fighter jet needs to cross a country to intercept a threat, it has to choose between speed and stealth. If it goes supersonic, the boom announces its presence to everyone within 50 miles. Low boom technology allows for acoustic stealth. A future interceptor could travel across enemy territory at Mach 1.5, and on the ground it would sound like a faint rumble, easily dismissed. Enemy defenses wouldn't have a second to respond. The X-59 isn't just about supersonic flight. The data is paving the way for something even faster. While supersonic is Mach 1 to Mach 5, hypersonic is Mach 5 and above. That's flying from New York to Tokyo in 90 minutes. Hypersonic flight brings even more heat and far more complex shockwaves than supersonic. The thermal and noise control lessons from the X-59 are stepping stones to that suborbital future. Master Mach 1.4 and scaling up to Mach 5 becomes possible. Aerospace is at a pivot point in history. For 20 years, the future was slower than the past. The Concorde showed what speed could do, but it came with too many flaws. The X-59 proved speed and silence don't have to be a trade-off. The next 3 years are the real test. The flight tests in the California desert will generate the hard numbers. The community overflights will generate the psychological data. The result? Not just a faster plane, it could change how humans live and work. With its long nose and windowless cockpit, the X-59 doesn't look like any conventional plane. But as it taxis onto the runway at Palmdale, ready to fire its F-18 afterburner, it pushes an entire industry forward, something commercial aviation hasn't done in decades. And its arrival signals one thing: supersonic flight has returned. Now go check out World War III doomsday airplane E-6 Mercury, or click on this video instead.